the amount of businesses out there that don't see that if you just look after your customer and give them a great experience, here's a shocker, they may come back. Like I do a lot of stuff with large organisations. It just always shocks me the amount of money they spend trying to attract a new customer just to get them in to treat them as bad as their current customers. It makes no sense whatsoever. And so for me, I just thought a lot of business owners haven't got the time to create the training for their staff. They don't have the knowledge. So I thought, well, I'll just put all that together. And it just took off. It's the easiest way to grow your business.
Welcome to Getting to the Heart of Business, brought to you by The Online Co, where we believe the best way to help small and medium businesses grow is by putting people first. I'm James Parnwell, and in this episode we'll catch up with entrepreneur and business mentor Justin Herald. Justin's best known as the guy behind the global t-shirt brand Attitude, which he started in the mid-90s quite by accident with just $50 and a whole lot of boldness. Several $1 million later he sold that brand, and these days he's a highly sought after trainer with his company Customer Culture, where he teaches businesses how to treat their customers better. With me is my co-host, friend and marketing expert, Jess Caluso. G'day, Jess.
Hey, James.
Have you got a best or worst customer experience story?
Oh, I do. I've got a worst customer experience story that turns into a really good one. So the particular car model that I drive are not renowned for their reliability.
Yes.
However, they look wonderful and are really fun to drive.
Okay.
So I take this brand new car for its maybe like 5,000 kilometre service. The dealership's got the car the entire day. Then I go to pick it up and they say to me, oh, by the way, you actually need to get new brakes in about another 500 kilometres.
Okay, brand new car.
Yeah, I said, well, why don't you just do that today? Oh, we couldn't get the parts. Okay. So at this point in time, I was driving about 700 kilometres a week. So
you're gonna have to
less
come back
than
in
ideal.
4 days. Yeah.
So I rang my previous mechanic who I used to use before I bought this new car, and I said to him, got this car, I need new brakes like in 2 days. Can you do it? Yep, Jess, bring it in, no worries. So take my car there on a Saturday to this small independent little mechanic. He gets it done. First of all, the courier brought him the wrong brakes. He had to return them, then got the right brakes and ended up getting it done. So went from run really bad company,
Yeah,
a massive company
Yeah.
who have a lot of staff, a lot of employees who you thought would have been able to pick up the phone and tell me this work needed to be done. And then I took it to this small independent mechanic who has 3 staff, and he managed to get this job done and turn it around in 3 hours on a Saturday. So I went from being super frustrated to having some good service.
And no doubt you're not going back to that big company for servicing.
No, I've never
longer.
been back.
No.
I'm sure you've got some best and worst customer experience stories.
Well, last year we went on a holiday, and the first night of our holiday we spent in Kiama and went to a pub down there for dinner. So it was April 9 and the kids, so there's 6 of us. And we went in and we got a few drinks, and then we placed an order for our food. And we're sitting there telling stories. This first night of holiday, so we're all on a high, we're excited, we're talking about the old days and telling funny stories, and just having a general good time. But about an hour and a half had gone by and our food hadn't turned up.
Oh dear.
So we politely went and asked, how's our order coming along? And they'd lost it. They hadn't been cooked. So they're very apologetic and shouted us another round of drinks. So the drinks all came out, and the kids had ordered like a lemon, lime and bitters, which is meant to have lemonade in it. But the lemonade had lost its syrup. They've got these horrible tasting lemon, lime and bitters.
Oh.
So I had to send those ones back too. But the whole time they gave us another round of drinks. They gave us some free desserts. They really looked after us and were apologetic.
So they're in communication with you the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the end of the night, we'd had a terrific night. We had a great meal. We had a great evening out. And I jumped on Google and gave them a 5-star review saying, hey, I'm in business. Things go wrong. I get it. It's how you deal with the problem, not whether they're going to go wrong or not. So that's my good and bad experience all in the one place. Well, in today's interview, you might want to take notes because Justin shares a wealth of great knowledge and wisdom on what to do and what not to do when it comes to customer service and how to create an experience that keeps your customers coming back for more. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
So for those who don't know your story, can you give us the abridged version of Attitude and how you got started?
Yeah, look, I guess I'm what they refer to as an accidental I don't even like using the word entrepreneur, business guy.
Yep.
My dad's a minister, and growing up inside the church, I was constantly told by other people where I had my own problems.
Okay.
And a lady came up to me one day and she said, "You got an attitude problem?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she said, "Well, you answer everyone back." And I said, "Well, no, I don't." And she says, "Until you stop doing that, you're going to go nowhere." So the only reason I decided to start it became a business, the first thing, I just wanted to upset her the following Sunday. That was my plan. It wasn't even a business. And I thought the best way to do that is if I can get my attitude problem on the back of a T-shirt, then I don't have to go anymore. I can send my mates there and I can upset her by proxy. And I was going to do that and then come up with another idea the following Sunday and just keep on upsetting her for the rest of my life.
Right.
So I then thought, well, I'll go, do some T-shirt stuff. So I went to the bank and I only had $1.25 in the bank. And so I rang up my brother.
So how old were you?
25.
Okay.
Yeah. I sort of sucked with money. That's the underlying of that one. So then I rang my brother and I said, "Can I borrow some money?" He said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I want to upset so-and-so in the church." And he said, "Yeah, all right, here's $50. So with that, I got 4 shirts made up.
Yep.
I sold 3 of those shirts. The following Sunday, we all went to church. We all walked in at the same time with our shirts on, and I upset this lady massively.
Right.
It's the best $50 I've ever spent, really. But on the day, people come up and said 2 things I wasn't expecting. One, they said, "I like your shirt." I said, "Thank you." And number 2, could I buy one? And I wasn't expecting that at all. And I do a lot of business mentoring now, and it's one of my theories is you have to have a business that has organic growth. There's too many people spending a lot of money at the moment on trying to get their business to work, and it may work that way, but there's got to be an organic aspect. And my businesses have always been organic. They just work, and a lot of that's to do with a lot of different things, but mainly to do with pricing. So I knew that if I sold 1 shirt, I could go and make 2 more. So the way the business went, it sort of sold 4, could make 8, could make 16, and that's the way that the business grew. I had no money for marketing, and so...
But the brand itself had an internal intrinsic value, right? Just people saw it and went, "I like that."
Yeah, well, it was positive sarcasm, if you can, with no swear words. So it was, we called them ego shirts because it's either how I feel about myself, I'm going to buy it for that reason, or it's how other people see me and they're going to buy it for me. It was stuff like, "I love my attitude problem. It's all about luck, just ask any loser," stuff like that, and it was just a bit of Aussie sarcasm and humour, but it's trying to stay positive on the whole thing.
Right.
And it just worked. It was the right place, right time. I get people every now and again saying, "Oh, you're just lucky." Well, I've had 26 years of luck now, and it's pretty good. It's going all right.
Yeah. That's a lot of luck.
Yeah. So it's just right place, right time. People liked it. My approach, because I'd never done business before. The only thing I passed in school was recess. So I had no clue with what to do, how to do. This is before the internet, which I think is the biggest issue for a lot of startups these days. There's too much information that they can access, and that information is not correct a lot of the time. And just because someone's got a website doesn't mean it's going to be what you need to do. And now I didn't have that, and I didn't really know anyone that was in business. So I just did the whole common sense approach. And common sense, if you think about it, it's like deodorant. The people that really need to use it rarely do. Yeah. But I just thought, I've got no idea, and I decided to grow my business or do my business through my personality. I thought that's the one thing I can turn up to work with every day.
Yeah, it's your unique sales point, right? You.
Well, yeah. Well, I didn't know if I could do it or not. But and the way it started, I sold to friends and friends and friends and friends and mates of friends, and that's the way I did it. I thought that's the way you had to do it, and it seemed to work okay. And then I tried to get into one store here in Sydney, and the guy said, "I haven't heard of your brand." I said, "Well, you haven't, because I haven't told you about it yet. Like, how's this supposed to work?" And he said, "Well, no one's asking for it." I said, "Well, they don't know about it." So, and I was trying to get him to stock it, and he said, "No, when people start asking for it, I'll put it in." So I just thought, well, I'm just going to be Justin here, and I got 4 of my mates to...
I can see what's coming here. Yeah.
I got 4 of my mates to ring over 4 weeks to ask, did he have any attitude gear? And the last time someone asked, he said, "I'm waiting for the rep to come back in because there's such a demand for his brand." And I went in the following day. He put an order in for $1,587, which was time for financial retirement for me there.
Yep, ready to go.
And that was the start of getting into retail. But then I thought, you know what, I've got to, not that I even knew what this was, but for me, there had to be another layer. There had to be the consumer wanting my brand more so than the retailer liking my brand. I wanted to make it consumer driven.
It needs to be pulled through the retailer by the consumer.
Which to me, when you've got no money, you try and do whatever you can. But once again, that to me makes sense. Now, if I look at a lot of people in business, especially startups now, they just want to try and get it into a store. They just want to get some presence. They haven't seen if the consumer actually likes that. So what we call it, right from day one, I called it going after my customer's customer. So I wanted to be in front of enough people and give them such a great experience, not only with product but also service, that they had to go and tell someone else, whether that person was a retailer or someone else that wanted to buy from me direct. So I went to Parklea Markets just up the road here. Set up on the first day we set up. In the first 15 minutes, I sold out. And that was the day I thought, you know what, I actually think I've got something. And that was the day that I started to take it seriously.
Yeah. So how long were you into it then?
4 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'd kind of been doubling, just selling the shirts, reinvest, sell them again, reinvest.
Yeah, and I was still working 2 part-time jobs. So, because it was just a thing I was doing on the side and I wasn't really taking it that serious.
So you use the term accidental entrepreneur. I guess that sounds like it all happened by accident, but I just wonder if there's something in there that was sort of meant to come out.
Yeah, I think there's a natural skill there. I can acknowledge that now. And the thing I like about being in business, and I'll never call myself an entrepreneur. I think it's a third-party endorsement, but I think the entrepreneurial thing, it's a lot to do with having a bit of mongrel in you. And I've always had that. And it's funny, in business now, everything that I get away with is everything I got in trouble for when I was a kid. But so I just enjoyed that freedom. I enjoyed being able to create something and do it my way. I've never done profit and losses and forecasts and budgets and all the stuff you're supposed to do in business, but no one told me I had to in the first place. And all the businesses since then that I've started, I've done the exact same way. And I haven't put any money in because I proved by accident that I could do that to start off with. So why go and spend a fortune on a new business?
I actually remember an interview with Alan Bond, who went completely broke. He got into too much debt. And after he'd done his jail sentence, he came out and said, I always start businesses with no money. Now. He learnt the hard way, getting into a lot of debt. And
well, if you think about it, if you put a lot of money into something and it doesn't work, it really matters. But if you don't put a great deal of money in it and it doesn't work, but you're giving it a shot, well, it's okay. It doesn't really matter. But you've learnt stuff along the way, And look, I just found that I had a natural flair to this business thing. Yeah, my way though.
That's right. So I just wonder if it didn't emerge through trying to tick off an old lady at church, it probably would have emerged some other way.
Well, I've got a common theme. When I'm ticked off, I start a business. So all of my businesses have started by being upset or getting annoyed.
So there's something wrong with the world that you need to fix?
Yeah, probably. Like Junior Entrepreneur, that started because I'm sick and tired of the school system not actually having any practical application to what they're teaching kids. I wish someone taught me how to budget, or that, if I fail at school, there are other options other than just going to university or getting a job. When I was a kid, starting your own business meant you couldn't get a real job. That was how it was seen back in the olden days.
Yeah. Probably off the back of the Depression, there was like go and get a government job, go and be safe, a very low risk attitude. But 30, 40 years later, that just wasn't true anymore.
No.
You talk about the inner mongrel, right? And because I'm a pastor's kid as well, so I experienced the old lady giving me a hard time about, I don't know why, but there was a couple of people at church that thought they could parent me better than my parents. Yeah. It never crossed my mind, though, to actually tick them off more. I thought, I'll just try and pull my head in and, see if I can slide past them. That's obviously something in there that's wanting to push back.
Oh, yeah. I've been like that in my entire life.
But that's we come back to the kind of the mongrel thing to get you started in business.
Yeah, well, it was one of those things, like when you do anything, especially in startup, you only can use what you got. So I didn't have money. I didn't have expertise. I just thought, I do have the I want to upset you thing. And I'm still doing it 26 years later. She's still upset with me. So it's still going okay.
Yeah, well done. So what were you doing before you were 25?
I had a million jobs. So when I left school, I was a trainee manager for Super Kmart, it was called back in those days, up in Katoomba. And then I went from that to grocery manager of Coles and Woolies, and then assistant manager of some of those. So I was really young, like 21. So I always had a good work ethic.
Yeah,
and
work
then,
hard.
Yeah, and then I did repping. So I did repping because I found out they gave you a company car, which was a lot better than my Datsun 120Y automatic.
I remember those well.
Yeah, and so I decided to do repping, and then I went into personal training and into managing gyms, and all the time through that process, one thing that I noticed a lot is I could see whether there could be good opportunities for those businesses, and I'd say something, not wanting anything other than to help out, and it's either it was a bad idea because it wasn't their idea, or that idea was taken and I was given no credit for it, and I just that sort of thing really got to me. And so I worked for people, but there was just no passion behind all of that.
Did you feel like there was something missing, that there was a thing that you needed to do that you hadn't quite found yet?
No, not at the time. Now I wouldn't do anything other than own my own business.
Yeah,
we're talking during COVID, because my wife owns businesses and I own businesses, and we're just talking, especially mine was speaking at conferences, that all shut down. And I said to Renee, in theory, if I was to do a resume, no one would hire me because I've actually got no proper credentials. I've got nothing other
Steve
than what
Waters
I've
said
done.
the same thing, and I think I'd be the same.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I didn't really put much thought into the whole thing, to be honest. It's only after when Attitude, I got a lot of media attention during Attitude, but after that there was more media attention that it made me actually start to think back of, I suppose that was okay, and I suppose I did do all right there. But when you're in it, you're in it, you know?
Yeah. So you've been very intuitive in the process, just taking the next steps,
Yep.
seeing what the opportunity is, seeing what the problems are and overcoming them, and just moving forward step by step.
Yeah, look, I'm a worst case scenario guy. Some people have got a plan B. I've got a plan Z.
Okay.
Just in case things don't work out, just in case something goes wrong. I call it the third party influencer. There's always going to be someone that could potentially get in the way that I can't control that.
Right, out of your
So
control.
what's going to happen with that? So I've always got different scenarios playing out in my head, because one thing I don't want to lose is momentum. So like this happened about 7 months into Attitude. There was a company up in Queensland, a chain of stores, that took on Attitude, that also had my competitor in there as well, which is an American company. And we started to outsell the American company. And so we kept on ordering and ordering and ordering. And then one day I rang up before the 30 days, rang up and said, wanting to know when you're going to start paying. Phone didn't go through. So $37,500 I lost. Right. I'll find him one day. I've still got his name in the back of my head. And that wasn't planned, but I learned a lot of stuff then, like make sure you get all your legals done correctly, make sure you got contracts. It was a very expensive mistake. The other thing, the main thing I learned was I dug myself out of that hole in a week. And I realised that I'm very good when I'm faced with problems. That's a strength of mine. And I see a lot, especially with my mentoring clients, they're trying to avoid any decisions in case it creates a problem. Like some of my staff think I created COVID because I just love having a problem.
Love problems. Yeah.
So, and that's the way I operate the best, and when things are going really well, I get bored. That's why I start more businesses all the time.
Yeah, right. So when you've lost 37 grand, what was your initial response? Was it angry? Was it
I was ticked.
upset? Like,
Yeah. Like I didn't call my business Attitude for no reason. So I did all my effort to try and find the guy. And I have now found him. He's probably got a very short memory. I've got a very long one. And I'll just remind him of that. But I was ticked off, but I learnt the lesson pretty quickly. You only have to be kicked in the head by horse once to know that it hurts, and I didn't want to get kicked again. So I changed my model so there was only X amount of products that people could buy or dollar value before they could then, regardless of their terms, set all that sort of stuff up.
So you made some fast changes.
Always do.
To protect that from happening again.
Yeah.
But you said you dug yourself out of it in a week. How did you do that?
I just realised that I needed to sell more to get myself out of this problem. If it was going to take that a really long time to actually get that, then I'm going to be in a bigger hole. So it was just, there's the problem, go and fix it. It's the old, there's the itch, and I had to find the scratch for it.
And COVID did this to a lot of people, didn't it? They had a problem, and it's like, well, I either fix this or I'm gone.
Yeah.
And so they started fixing things.
Yeah. And I hate the word pivot, but what it was all about creating a different... Right here is a perfect example. Like, they've set up a podcast studio inside a club. Like, who would have thunk it? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the sort of stuff. No, I was just lucky, and this was luck, I guess, with COVID, that I had both my customer culture and my junior entrepreneurs online programs prior to that all happening, and that sort of was one of those things that just was fantastic. My mentoring went up because everyone was panicking, but my speaking, which is the thing I love doing, just died. I lost 66 jobs in one day.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So that was just like every job you had booked in was gone. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did about 120 a year.
So the next 6 months was...
Just gone skis. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I'm very interested in your emotional response to that, because as business people, things go wrong.
Yeah.
And some people go into depression and misery, other people... And often there's like a visceral response. I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm something like that. And then we can claw out of it.
Yeah.
Some people just punch straight back.
Yeah, I didn't punch straight back this time. I had that continuity, I guess, of the entrepreneur stuff, the junior entrepreneur stuff, and the customer culture stuff, and that was just ticking over. And that sort of grew pretty quickly from a global perspective, because people started to realise, well, if our staff are at home, we may as well train them in customer service or retrain them. So that was okay. I quickly realised I put a lot of my identity in being a speaker.
Okay.
And that took a hit, because I don't really care what people think about, Justin Herald as such, but I just love speaking.
You
I just
really
love
enjoy
it.
it. Yeah.
And when that's ripped away from you, it sort of hit me pretty hard. But there's not a great... You can't unscramble eggs. So if this was a thing that I could have fixed and it was part of my problem and my fault, then I probably would have wallowed in that longer. But, everyone was going through the same stuff. I probably took longer than most to go, okay, well, let's reinvent something here. But it's because I didn't have to either, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's also, there's different industries where, I know you don't like the word pivot, where the shift is easy. So if you're making whiskey and you can start making hand sanitizer, that's pretty logical.
Yeah.
But if you're a tourist operator in Cairns who does trips out on the Barrier Reef, it's pretty hard to come up with a new version of it. You can't exactly take that online.
No.
And speaking publicly is probably closer to the Cairns example.
Yeah, well, that's where
that
they all
happening?
went down the Zoom thing, and I went kicking and screaming on that.
Yeah, it's not the same.
And I mean, I got a lot of bookings and stuff like that, but I just can't get excited about looking at myself in the screen. Like, it's just, I love that audience reaction, because I use a lot of humour in my talks and stuff. Yeah. And seeing people's reactions is something that I thoroughly enjoy. So, I mean, it's all coming back now. I was away last week speaking, so it's all coming back. But, yeah, I probably didn't cope with it as well as I could have. But,
yeah, again, there's a third party, the thing you can't control.
Yeah, someone licked a bat, and then my whole business is stuffed. It's great.
Google Ads is probably the best and the worst digital marketing tactic on the internet. The best because if people are looking for you and they're looking for your keywords, you can pretty much guarantee you can turn them into leads. It's the worst that if they're not, you shouldn't be doing it. And frankly, I speak to people who want to do Google Ads and shouldn't, and we convince them not to. So my question for you is, will Google Ads work for you? Well, we'd love to help you answer that question. Jump on theonlineco.net, book a quick chat, and we can help you. I'm interested in, your church upbringing. Mm-hmm. Has that delivered to you some values or some things that you feel have helped you in your business?
Look, I have to say church would be fantastic if there was no one in it.
I've often said that myself.
It's from my parents.
Yeah.
Is where it's come from. So the values that they've instilled in us, all of us kids, we've got a brother and a sister. We've all reached a level of success. And I think a lot of that's to do with the ethics and the morals that my parents are taught. Like, I run my business based upon how I was brought up.
Yeah. And
that's where I will get ripped off by $37,000 because I do believe that someone says they're going to pay me back.
Yeah, you give people trust.
Yeah, and I still will do that.
I think you win more than you lose.
Yeah, well, I can now smell that a mile away, so I won't even go down that path now. But yeah, look, it's played a massive role. But that it's hard not to when you grow up in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just things like doing what you say you're going to do. Like,
Yeah.
and I know that sounds so boring, but reliability is such an underrated
Well, my big
value.
one is if I say I'm going to call you back, here's the thing, I'm going to call you back.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. And there's a lot of people in business, the reason their businesses are not going as well is because they don't keep their word. If someone emails them and said, can I get a price? Email them. They've asked for the business. If you say, I'm going to get back to you with a price, get back to them. You know, the new currency, I think, post-COVID is speed. Now, it's the time that we take to get back to our customers or to do something for our customers is where we're going to actually succeed or not succeed.
Absolutely. For me, my parents raised me around it's all about people and
Yep.
put people first. And so in this podcast, we talk about the best way to grow a small or medium business is to put people first.
Yep.
That's your customers, but it's also your staff.
Yep.
It's all sorts of people. And that's where you're driving with your customer culture business.
Yeah, well, I started that once again out of frustration. Back when I left school, when I started at Super Kmart, they put us through the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
As part of that, there was a lot of training that these companies would spend and invest into their staff. Then we come to 2019. I read if you ever want to put yourself to sleep and you can't sleep, just go to the Bureau of Statistics website.
Yeah, I've spent some time there.
Yeah, and I read an interesting statistic that 87% of adult workers in Australia have had zero training in the last 3 years inside a business. And,
Oh, wow.
And for me, my theory is, as a business person, I go out on a Monday with my tank full of service and I give it out all day, every day. When it comes to the weekend, I go out with my empty tank and go out and spend my money hoping that I can get that service tank replenished. And I'm running on empty at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm starting to see the amount of businesses out there that don't see that if you just look after your customer and give them a great experience, here's a shocker, they may come back. And that means you don't have to spend any money. And I do a lot of stuff with large organisations. It just always shocks me the amount of money they spend trying to attract a new customer just to get them in to treat them as bad as their current customers. It makes no sense whatsoever. And so for me, I just thought, I wanted to start that because there's not a great deal of information. There's not a great deal of content in that place. A lot of business owners haven't got the time to create the training for their staff. They don't have the knowledge in that area to do that as well. So I thought, well, I'll just go and put all that together. And it just took off. It's the easiest way to grow your business.
Absolutely, because an existing customer, to get more business from them or keep their business is much cheaper than going and getting a new one. And you're right. What's the point of getting a new one if you're just going to treat them badly? Most of our listeners are small or medium. They might have 10 staff, 50 staff, sort of in that space. What would you suggest to them? Something to get started, something practical?
What we've got to do in business is make sure that our staff know where the baseline is. And the funny thing is, I don't read resumes when someone comes for a job interview. For one reason, as if you're going to say, I really suck at customer service on that, right? You're only going to tell me what you want me to know.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'll hire off personality. I can teach you skill.
Absolutely.
But the problem is the culture inside a business is the sum parts of everyone in there. If you don't have a baseline that you say to everyone, here's where we operate from, all these different people coming in create the culture, and they may not be the culture that you're wanting for your customers. Tell you the big thing, most people have never actually done an audit on their customer's journey. They've never actually figured out what do my customers go through in order to give me money. And if they did, they'd realise, wow, we're making this really hard.
Do you mean like from first phone call to meeting
touch point,
to email follow up to
Yeah, I went to a website the other day and it said for any more information, give us a call. It would be fantastic if they had a phone number on their website, but no one's actually gone, we don't have a phone number.
That's very surprising.
Yeah, a lot of business owners are like chefs that have never tasted their own food.
Yeah, gotcha.
And if they just did that, and that's what we get asked to do that a lot. The first thing that I normally would do for any business is go, okay, here's the experience that I had dealing with you, and here's the problems that you got from that. And like the younger generation, the problem that they've got is they've never actually experienced great service. They experience mediocre service or bad service, and they think that's okay service. So for them then to give great service on their own volition, Well, they don't know what that is. Being nice is not giving service. You're supposed to be nice because that's how you get the job. It's about going that extra mile, understanding what different customers have different needs. The first module in the program I created was a customer service personality test, which is different to a personality test. Because if you think about it, most people turn up to work with their work personality, not their normal personality. Because my normal personality, if you have a go at me, I'm going to go, look, you're an idiot. Now, you can't really say that to a customer, right? So I'm going to turn up with my work personality. We need to know who that is and how we operate in that. And so does our boss, because our boss, well, the owner will employ based upon who's sitting across the table. When they start, they're a different person because they've got their work personality on. So they need to know who's what. And this happens a lot in hairdressers that we deal with. The receptionist that they've got has been employed because she's a lovely lady. Problem with that is when she comes to work, she doesn't like selling. She doesn't really like to have confrontation. Now, when their job is to upsell when they finish, and when I've done this with a few larger salons, they go, we've got the wrong person in the wrong job. We need to swap these people around. And it's just like, you do. Growing a business for me is like doing a jigsaw puzzle. You've got to turn all the pieces over. You've got to find the corner bits. Then you've got to take a bit of time to figure out what fits in what. And I think the problem with chucking a COVID thing into the middle of all this, people have taken their eyes off what do I need to address into let's just keep our heads above water. What they haven't realised, if you just address how your customers have been treated, the water level will start to go down because your customers will keep you afloat.
Yeah.
And I want my customers to bring me other customers. I haven't spent a single cent in advertising in 26 years because, first of all, I couldn't afford it. Then I thought, well, I don't need to because I'm getting business from my customers anyway.
Yep. Yeah, so essentially you're saying try and think like a customer. Try and experience what they experience.
Yeah, act like an owner, think like a customer.
Yeah, and then get in their shoes, walk through it, and then go, how can I surprise and wow and make them feel fantastic through that journey?
Yeah. I went through, I won't mention which place, a drive-through recently with my kids, and I get to the talking box and they said, what do you want? And I said, what do I want? You don't say, what do you want? And they said, well, what do you want anyway? I went, oh. So I went to the next window and out comes the hand with the FPOS machine. I put my card on it, in goes the hand, the door shuts. And I went, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Go to the next door. My kids are on the floor in the car by this stage. But go to the next window and out comes my order. In goes the hand. Not one word was said. Now, when I asked for the manager, he comes to the window and what do you reckon he said? What do you want? So normally business owners, if people are complaining, the fish stinks from the head down. So it was learnt behaviour that. And I said to him, mate, do you do staff training? And he goes, oh, heaps. I said, we're at the Marcel Marceau's School of Customer Service. Like, nothing was said. So, but they've allowed that to happen. And that's actually through, if you look at that chain, it's now right through. There's no experience. And it used to be, they're the people you would employ in the olden days. So they've let that go.
You're talking about culture here. There's a culture that's not right there.
Yeah.
And it's coming through.
Well, the problem, I'm going to sound like an old man now, it's going to get worse if you think about it because the new leaders of HR or people and culture managers, they're the ones that are coming through that haven't experienced the training on how to give great service in the first place, and their job is to then implement that. And that's why customer culture's gone through the roof because all these companies are gone, we've got a problem. People don't like us and they're not coming back. It's just like, duh. That's not rocket science. I was in, got me going now. I was in Myers recently. I had to ring while I was there, the store, to ask them to send someone down to the register because there was no one to pay. Now, if I listen to...
you've got something in your hand, you want to give them money. Yeah.
Silly me, eh?
Yeah, right.
So all this stuff's very simple. And I think what a lot of people have done is overcomplicated all the processes inside their businesses and forgotten about the simple stuff. Like back in the olden days when there was no internet, businesses had to have the personal connection. They had to have the conversation. There was no bright and shiny thing to take our customers' attentions away other than a better experience somewhere else. And that's all we need to do now. We've got to go back to old school. And I guarantee if anyone tries this, it'll work.
They win.
100%.
Yes. Can I pick up on your talk about education and how we're kind of letting people down? It's always amazed me that I never learned how to budget at school.
Yeah.
That's very basic maths. I really loved maths. I probably would have loved budgeting. And I don't want to criticise school teachers or, there's some wonderful people out there doing some great work. But we don't encourage entrepreneurship. We probably encourage like linear thinking and...
how to surf the net is sort of one of the things that they teach kids now.
Well, what people are saying is that given that kids are studying for jobs that may not exist when they get there, they really need a level of resilience and an ability to overcome adversity and thinking outside the box. Like some of these skills become very important when, my job as a truck driver's gone now because trucks drive themselves, for example.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your business in the education space.
Yeah, I just got frustrated because I do a lot of speaking in schools, and I love that in like year 10 and 11s. They're at that point where they're either going to stay or they're going to go. The kids will come up and go, this is amazing, but I saw there was a big hole, and that hole also was if little Johnny wants to start a business, goes to mum and dad, they work 9 to 5 for someone else. They've got no idea on how to help him.
No.
And my
parents didn't, and your parents didn't either, right?
No. And so that I had to figure it out for myself.
Same. So, all sorts of mistakes in the process.
Yeah. And so I just thought I'd create that. And then this is how I start businesses. So one day I put on Facebook, I'm really looking forward to launching Junior Entrepreneur next week. And my wife rings up. She goes, you haven't told me about this. I said, I only just thought about it. And 187 people that day, 186 people that day messaged me saying, I want that for my kid. I thought, oh, wow, I better go and do it now.
Yeah.
So went out, bought a microphone, got the recording stuff on my computer, knocked it out the next day, all done. And it just went nuts. One of our young kid that's done it, he started when he was 9. Now it's aimed at 14 and up. So he started at 9. He's pretty switched on. Angus. He's now 11. He just won the Australian Business Awards for the best sole operator. He's 11. He beat all the other adults and all that sort of stuff.
And what does he do?
Croc candy. He creates these little crocodile eyes out of candy, and he's up in Darwin, and they sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, wow.
And that's stuff that you will not learn at school. Like,
No.
I've got a big passion because when, especially like through COVID, the entrepreneurial flair came out a lot. And if we can teach that to more people, they're a step ahead, especially younger ones.
So we've interviewed all sorts of people on the podcast, people that have left school in year 10 and people that have had PhDs.
Yep.
And it would seem to me that your level of formal education is not an indicator of success.
Oh, I don't think so at all.
But learning is, right? So people are learning in different ways.
Yeah, that's where, like for me, I had to figure out, for me it's trial by fire and having a drama. That's how I learn. Where other people, like if I look at my wife, she's very structured. Like her to-do list is about 4.5 kilometres long. She knows exactly when it's supposed to be done and where it's supposed to be. My to-do list is one thing, do that one thing, and then put another thing on there.
Yeah.
So everyone's different, but you got to try and tap into that. And for me, a lot of that comes back to personality, especially business owners. If you're not running your business through your personality, that's the problem. If you're having to be someone totally different when you go to work, you're going to hate it.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
You started a business here by doing a post on Facebook about junior entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It was just a thought bubble.
Yeah.
But essentially, unintentionally maybe, you're doing a bit of customer research.
Yeah, well, I always sort of do that. I'll put things out going, is anyone interested in this or anyone interested in that? That one I just thought I'd do it because I was going to do it at some point in time. The content I knew was in my head. That was easy. So that it was like a 6-hour program. It was audio because I spoke to kids and how do you want it delivered. They didn't want video because they didn't want to sit in front of a thing. They wanted audio so they could listen to it on the bus or whatever. And then I created workbooks, and that for me was just writing on pieces of A4 paper. Gave it to our art chick and off she went and made it look great. And that was all done in a day and a half. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, nice. With Attitude, you sold it after about 6 years or so.
Yeah.
Did it ever cross your mind to keep it forever, or the offer was too good, or you'd rather just bounce from idea to idea, or?
Yeah, well, I ended up licensing the brand worldwide, so I was only really working 2 days a year at that stage.
Okay.
And because all these companies had the rights to manufacture products with Attitude on it, and my role in that was just to give approval whether I liked what they were going to make or not, and then wait for the royalty check. So it was sort of getting a bit over it. People started asking me to speak. I was then asked to write my first book, and then a company approached me and asked if I'd sell my business, and I said, probably not. They said, "We'll offer you this much." I went, "Nah, can do that this year." And they came back 10 minutes later and said, "What about this much?" I went, "Yeah, all right." And that was it, because I was no longer attached to it. I think when I was at the markets and when I was out there doing the repping, I was doing the do. And
it was your baby.
My favourite job is to pack boxes. I love doing that. My wife just had a big Mother's Day mail out, and she goes, "I've got to get all these envelopes done." I go, "I'll do them." So I've been sitting there all weekend doing that. So I like all that. So when it started to become one of those things that was very financially going well, but I was doing nothing, and I got bored.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You mentioned that your way of learning is trial by fire. So basically, let's have some dramas and get into it. So you thrive on stress?
The older I get, I don't really like it as much as I used to in the olden days. Yeah, Renee's kids had never seen me with hair, so they asked me recently to grow hair. I can't believe how much grey's going on there. Look, I operate under pressure is probably a good, better way of putting it.
So you voluntarily put yourself in places of pressure?
Probably, yeah, if I think about it. If there's a deadline, I'll probably wait until the last minute and go, okay, I better go and do that now.
Okay.
But I always get it done. So,
yeah.
But yeah, the customer culture thing's probably the hardest one I've done for a while, because I've got to deal with the mentality of the decision maker on putting a value on actually looking after customers. That's the thing that just does my head in, where you sit and go, why aren't you getting this? So that's probably a bit of a frustration for me. The small businesses get it.
Yeah.
They know if they've got one or two staff, it's the easiest thing for them to do, to spend under $100 to get their staff trained. It's a no-brainer. When you've got, we've got one deal pending at the moment for 36,500 people, and their number one complaint is customer experience. And you go, and the problem would be what? But that's the problem. I don't like dealing with big business a lot, but there's so many fingers in it. No one wants to make a decision.
Absolutely.
So you just got to play that game.
And is it possible that the small and medium business owner, if there's a complaint, it's like a complaint against them as a personal?
Yeah. And if I look at the majority of the larger organisations now that we deal with, their main concern that they wanted to fix was Google reviews. And I go, that's the last thing you should be thinking of. The reason they go to Google reviews is what's happened along the way.
That's the last
So stop
step.
worrying about that thing. Oh, we just want to get it from a 3.7 to a 4.2. It's just like, who thinks like this? But anyway, I'm glad I don't.
Well, they got KPIs or whatnot, but they don't.
I can't even spell KPIs. It's just ridiculous. and your best asset in your business, any business, should be a competition, because they should suck more than you. And if they don't, there's your problem. So just make sure you don't suck as much as them. Like, it's not that hard.
There's your competitive edge.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself headed? Have you got new things on the boil? Or
Yeah, I've got a thing that I'm working on at the moment. I wish I could tell you about it, but it's a product this time that I'm going to do. And I'm just finalising the manufacturing process of that. It's one of those things that every parent's going to go, that's exactly what I've been looking for. So I'm going to probably do that. That was just one of those off-the-cuff things I thought, wouldn't mind giving that a crack, and there's a need. But where am I going to be in 5 years' time? No idea. Because if you asked me 25 years ago, where would have been 25 years, wouldn't be here. So I've got no idea.
You don't think like that. You're an instinctive next step.
I have a one-day plan.
Yeah.
Just get to tomorrow and make today as good as it can be.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I can only control what I'm in control of. And my goal was never to have a brand that was global. It was never to turn over X amount of dollars. It was just to upset the lady, and it ticked. I was not really the best reader or writer when I left school, and I've got 8 books that are sold around the world. Like, I don't know what I can or can't do yet until I give it a crack. So that's probably why me putting a post out and then starting it the next day. It's sort of how I operate. I thought when I was approached by the publishing company, I turned up to the meeting and said, yeah, I'll do it, sign the contract. I said, when do I get to meet my ghostwriter? They went, why would you have a ghostwriter? I said, oh, no, I don't know how to write a book. They said, well, you're going to have to do one now. You signed the contract. But that took me 3 weeks, my first book to write. Okay. So I realised then, actually, I'm good at this.
There you go.
So I think if people started to take their blinkers off, that's especially small business owners, we've got to, we need to realise that maybe we are better at what we are good at but we've limited ourselves. Either our expectations are going, I don't think I could get that done. A lot of the time we listen to the wrong people that then guide us on whether we're good at something or not. But, I figured out a lot of the stuff that I thought I would suck at, I'm really good at. And so where's the future? Trying to figure out where I am good at, where I thought I'd suck at. So.
And you have a real value around fun, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
You want to have fun along the journey.
Absolutely. Otherwise it's going to be boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all about, it's quality of life stuff as well. It's about both as I said before, my wife and I own a lot of businesses together, and all together and separate. We've got 5 daughters. It's got to be the quality. We've just bought a caravan because we want to go back to old school, and especially the younger ones. Instead of going to those 5 stars, let's go to the 1,000 stars.
Yeah, love it.
And just go and do that sort
Get
of stuff.
outside,
yeah.
Get off the devices.
There's got to be a payoff as to why you work hard.
Yeah.
And I love my cars and stuff, but I think the simpler things are the things that actually are the things you remember. So we work for our time.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you, Justin, so much for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure.
It's been very educational, and thank you for your insight and wisdom.
No dramas, thank you.
That was Justin Herald, and his website, justinherald.com, is the best place to find out about his speaking, mentoring, and online courses. Jess, Justin talked about doing a customer audit.
Yeah.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
That was probably the key takeaway for me.
Yeah.
From that. Yeah.
Talk us through that from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. So he spoke about auditing your customer's journey, and he mentioned that, a lot of business owners probably have never stood back and thought about, okay, what is the actual process that somebody takes to give me money, I think is what he said.
All the touch points.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really important. So from a marketing perspective, if you actually stopped and did that process and you're looking at all those different touch points, as you say, you can look at, okay, where am I coming into contact with my customers, or am I missing opportunities to come into contact with them? And how does that contact look? Is it communication on social media? Is it an email? Is it a blog article? Is it anything like that?
Phone call.
Yeah. So if you actually stopped and looked at that journey and mapped it out, and it might be that you did some market research. You might do a questionnaire or some research with your current customers. Yeah, ask them and get some real honest feedback from them. How did they come into contact with you? It'll give you so much insight into the journey that they're taking. You can make better informed decisions then.
Yeah, and you can find the gaps.
Yeah.
And possibly if there are no gaps, then you can insert little wow moments in there, things that really make them go, oh, that was thoughtful, or gee, that was a place where they went the extra mile.
That's right, yeah. Like we've got access to things like Google Analytics and all that sort of stuff, or heat maps, and we can look where people are scrolling on our website as an example and where they're clicking. Well, that sort of data and information gives you a lot of insight into part of that journey. But the other thing that he spoke about, James, was his brand attitude. And I'd really like to get your thoughts on what happens when you market a great product or service.
Yeah, so attitude was just a great idea, and the slogans were great, and people wanted it. So it just created demand all on its own. And when that's the case, you've got the potential to go viral. Now, this was in 1995, so it didn't go digitally viral. If it was released now, it would.
It would, wouldn't it? It'd be all over Instagram.
Yeah, it went organically viral throughout Justin's initial networks at his church, and then it obviously launched and went global over time. But marketing will basically take a good idea and amplify it and just show that great idea to more and more people. Even if you've got an average idea, a good idea, if you amplify that, it'll increase your business as well. The issue is that if you've got a business that's actually not very good, or your product or service isn't very good, marketing won't fix that problem.
No.
You've got to go back to basics and figure out what it is you do and get it up to good.
Well, marketing could make it worse, right? If you've got a bad product or service and you market it well, you could be opening up a whole world of issues.
Yeah, that's right. That's the scary side. So, coming up next week, you'll meet an Aussie mum with a background in HR who went on a family camping trip and along the way discovered she had a real knack for buying and selling camping gear on eBay. Justine Lightowler is her name, and that hobby she started during her maternity leave has now grown into a popular online camping store called CampSmart. You'll hear how Justine grew her business from a side hustle to a serious player in the camping market in our next episode. This episode of Getting to the Heart of Business was brought to you by The Online Co, produced by Claire Bruce, music by Harry Parnwell, and you can find us at theonlineco.net. If this episode would be helpful for someone you know, please feel free to share it with them right now. We'd love you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and jump onto our Facebook group and join the conversation at Getting to the Heart of Business.